Alhamdulillah. Allahumma lakal hamdu ala ma anamta bihi alayna min tanzil al-Qur'an. Alhamdulillahi allazi hajabatil albaba bada'i hikmahi wa khasamatil aqula lataifu hujjajihi wa qata'at uzra al-mulhidina ajaibu sun'ihi wa hatafa fi asma'il alamina al-sunu wa dillatihi shahidatan annahu alladhi la ilaha illahu. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who sent down the Qur'an on His chosen Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, for this blessing of the Qur'an, for the blessing of this morning to be able to reflect on His book. So let's make an intention of benefiting from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open for us this morning, of His wisdom. Imam al-Tabari started the tafsir of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and saying that His incomparable wisdom remains inaccessible to the most inquisitive minds. His subtle arguments triumph over discursive minds. The wonders of His creation reduce to nothing the excuses of the atheists. The tongues of all His creation call out to every listener that He is Allah, save whom there is none worthy of worship. فَكُلُّ مَوْجُودٍ إِلَىٰ وَحْدَانِيَتِهِ دَاعِي وَكُلُّ مَخْصُوصٍ إِلَىٰ رَبُوبِيَتِهِ هَادٍ بِمَا وَسَمَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ آثَارِ الْصَنْعَةِ من نقص وزيادة وعجز وهاجة وتصرف في عاعاته آردة ومقارنة في أحداث لازمة لتكون له الحجة البالغة. Every existent being calls to His oneness. Everything that we can perceive is a guide towards His Rububiyah through the marks of His creation with which He has branded them with decrease and increase, and through their utter inabilities and dependency upon Him, and through the susceptibility of the accidents that are inevitable and the calamities that are inevitable. He has established the decisive proof of His being one. So we seek, Ya Allah, we seek Your help, Your assistance in pondering and reflecting on the creation in which You have left Your signs. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana, Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allimtana, wa 'allimna ma yanfa'una wa zidna ilma. Allahumma ighfir li jami'a ma mada min zunubi وَاسِمْنِي فِيمَا بَقِيَ مِنْ عُمْرِي وَارْزُقْنِي عَمَلًا زَاكِيًا تَرْضَ بِهِ عَنِّي. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Today, inshallah, we are going to continue our reflection on the theme of creation, specifically about the creation of the samawat and the earth in 6 days. What is mentioned about the creation in 6 days and the mutual connections between those mentions in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will also mention, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens our hearts, some of the more subtle incongruence between the Big Bang cosmology and the Quranic creation theme. And if time permits, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us, we will begin our discussion about the first principles that we all need to learn in order to remain on the right path. Why these first principles are important? Who thought of them? Why? When? And why are they so permanently present in our tradition. Although most of us, most of the people now living, most of the Muslims, don't seem to have access to these fundamental first principles, and that's why there is so much intellectual confusion. So inshallah we'll begin that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us. So to begin, Bismillah, there are 7 ayats in the Qur'an where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that He created the samawat and the earth in 6 days. There are 7 ayahs, and they are in 7 surahs. All but one of them is Meccan. Only one, Surah Al-Hadid, is the one that was revealed in Medina, in which this mention of the 6 days of creation is there. So when we say these are the Meccan surahs and these are the Medinan surahs, you see, the lens is so important, how we look at these things. When we say that this portion of the Qur'an was revealed in Mecca, after 13 years in Mecca, the Prophet ﷺ migrated after the Hijrah. Whatever is revealed, technically, even though some of that is not in Medina, but we say this was revealed in Medina, by that understanding that this is after the Hijrah, because Hijrah is the marker. Because some of that, what was revealed afterwards, is revealed in Tabuk, for example, or is revealed elsewhere in Badr, or in not properly in the city of Medina. But when the same distinction reached the Orientalists and the missionaries, and they said, oh, this is Meccan Quran and this is Medinan Quran. I just love the Meccan Quran, but the Medinan Quran, you see what they did? They broke these covenants, they established this relationship with the Jews, and then they broke in them, they attacked, they became aggressive. All of that. There is a recent book called the Medinan Quran. A Medinan Quran, like they are separating the Quran. What do we know? The Quran is one Quran. It's just we are dividing this, and then we are further dividing the Meccan period, for example, into the beginning of the revelation, the 2nd stage, the 3rd stage, the 4th stage. Why? We want to understand the chronology of revelation. We want to understand for our own benefit the increasing depth of the themes of the Quran as it happened over the period of 23 years. In one verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, even in this theme of creation of the samawat and the earth, it just says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them in 6 days. No further details. Later on, there are more details. So this mapping for us has a different purpose than those who do not believe that this is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our fundamental lens is that the whole of the Quran came down all at once on Laylatul Qadr, which is coming inshallah soon. And then it was gradually revealed to the Prophet ﷺ's heart over a period of 23 years. And as it was being revealed, it addressed the immediate situation, what was happening in Mecca at that time, and then later in Medina and Badr and everywhere else, wherever the Prophet ﷺ, he was the walking Quran. So he was receiving revelation at 2 simultaneous levels of time. One is this serial time. You wake up in the morning, and this is the situation of the community, which is being guided by him, alayhi salatu wasalam. At the same time, there is this vertical time, because whatever is being revealed and whatever is not going to be mansukh, whatever is not going to be removed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is going to stay here for the entirety of the time to come. It's not going to change. Everybody is going to recite, inshallah, we're going to recite the whole of it in this place in Ramadan. Millions of people are going to recite exactly the same text for millions of years. Millions of people are going to recite for until the end of time. We don't know what time. So that time frame, there are 2 time frames in this. One, immediate reality. Second, leaving until the end of time. So when we come to the theme of the creation of the samawat and the earth in 6 days, There are 7 places in Surah Al-Hadid which is revealed in Medina, and all the others are in Mecca. How are we going to begin our reflection on these 7 ayahs? First of all, let's just listen to what is being said. Inna rabbakumullahu alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal arda fi sittati ayyam thumma istawa 'ala al-'arsh yughshi al-layla an-nahara yatlubuhu hasithan wash-shamsa wal-qamara wan-nujuma musakhkhiratin bi amrihi ala lahu al-khalqu wal-amru tabarakallahu rabbul alamin. Surah Al-Araf. There is a detailed description of the creation in 6 days, with true important things to note, to which we will go back. Al-Khalq wal-Amr. Lahul Khalq wal-Amr. In this creation theme, creation of the Samawat and the earth, there are 2 aspects. Number 1 is called Al-Khalq, and the second is called Al-Amr. Al-Khalq is creation, Al-Amr is the command. But these are also technical terms. What does Al-Amr means? The command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like kun. There is no connection between any substance, any material thing. And Al-Amr will go into the details. Then we have in Surah Yunus, Inna rabbakumullahu alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal arda fi sittati ayamin thumma istawa 'ala al-'arsh. Connection, thumma istawa 'ala al-'arsh in both cases. Then he established himself on the throne, created the heavens, I don't want to say heavens, created the samawat and the earth, and then Sumastawa al-Arsh. Now there are 2 meanings to Sumastawa al-Arsh. One is the establishment of his exalted being on the arsh, and the second is to turn towards the arsh. And we don't mean by that any kind of physical turning. وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. Another detail which was not present in the previous mentions, at that time his arsh, his throne, was on water. وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So he created these so that he can test who among you does the good deeds. الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. One more time in Surah Furqan. And then in Surah Sajda we have Allahu الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. One more time, he is then ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. He turned towards the arsh, or he established himself on the earth. But here he created the samawat and the earth, وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا, and whatever is in between them, in 6 days. We didn't have this detail in the first verses we mentioned. Just the creation of the samawat and the earth. But here we also have everything in between, within those 6 days. And then finally we have الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ. We did that. And then وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِنْ لَغُوبٍ. And tiredness did not touch through the act of creation. And why this is so important for us to know? Because in the biblical account, what do we have? He created everything in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't need rest. We will go back to this inshallah. And the last ayah is Surah Al-Hadid. This is the ayah, surah that was revealed in Medina. هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ يَعْلَمُ مَا يَلِجُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا وَمَا يَنزِلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَمَا يَعْرُجُ فِيهَا وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. Many more details in this Medinan mention. Many more. Everything, خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ in 6 days creation, then turning towards the arsh, he knows يَعْلَمُ مَا يَلِجُ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَمَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهَا. He knows what goes into the earth and what comes out of the earth. And what goes, وَمَا يَنزِلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ وَمَا يَعْرُجُ فِيهَا. And what comes down from the sama and what goes up. And He is with you wherever you are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always with us. Always. The question is, are we with Him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us this, to be with Him all the time that we have in this life. That is our refuge. He is our refuge. We immediately notice that these mentions of the creation of the samawat and the earth in 6 days are intimately connected with several other themes of the Qur'an. So when we said the creation theme gives us the widest possible pathway, it's the deepest ocean. It's just everything is connected because this is all we can see. We said we cannot see Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have no way of even perceiving His being. We have some access to His sifat, but the creation is the so, and then this is what we did on the 1st of January, that 8 of these roots are also is Asmaul Husna. 8 of the 11 roots from which we derive the words for creation. Another thing to note before we go further is that the mention of the creation of the samawat and the earth is not limited to these 7 verses. They are just being used here because these are the only 7 ayahs in the Qur'an where 6 days are mentioned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the creation of the earth and the samawat with other words where He doesn't mention 6 days. Many of the Ja'ala is one of them, Madal Ard. Many other words are used to describe or mention the creation of the earth without the mention of the 6 days. So because we wanted to focus on what does it mean to create, that He created in 6 days, that's why only these verses are focused today. The verse 6 actually, by the way, as a footnote, only comes in the Quran 8 times. Number 6 is just mentioned, not 7 times as 6 and 1 time as 60. So the root occurs in the Quran 8 times. Sitta, 6 days of this creation, and then these are 7 verses we said, and the 8th is Sitteen, in reference to in Surah Mujadila, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ فَإِطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا. Remember, you can give food to 60 masakin. So we are going to use the passage in Surah Fussilat, ayah number 9 to 13, to enter the ocean of 6 days of creation. Out of these 7 places where 6 days is mentioned, we are going to use Surah Fussilat. Why? Why? Like, are we just ad hoc? There must be some reason we are. Why do scholars, why do the commenters say, this is the place where I'm going to go, this is the point of diving into it? Out of these 7 possible ways of entering the ocean of creation in 6 days, Surah Fussilat is for many mufassirs. And Ibn Kathir rahimahullah says, وَهَذَا الْمَكَانُ فِيهِ تَفْصِيلٌ لِقَوْلِهِ تَعَالَى خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ Surah Al-Araf. He says this is the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the details of what He said in Surah Al-Araf. فَفَصَّلَ هَا هُنَا مَا يَخْتَصُّ بِالْأَرْضِ مِمَّا اخْتَصَّ بِالسَّمَاءِ فَذَكَرَ أَنَّهُ خَلَقَ الْأَرْضَ أَوَّلًا لِأَنَّهَا كَالْأَسَاسِ وَالْأَصْلُ أَنْ يُبْدَعَ بِالْأَسَاسِ ثُمَّ بَعْدَهُ بِالسَّقْفِ كما قال هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسوّاهن 7 سماوات. MashaAllah. He says that this is the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen in His book to give us more details, because here He tells us that He created the earth before the samawat. And He says, when you build a building, what do you create first? The foundation, then the first floor, then you put the roof on. So the reasoning is just fascinating by itself. Why would somebody just think of how much thinking has gone into just this one little aspect of which is the place in my tafsir of these 7 places I'm going to use to go into this ocean. So let's just reflect on the ayahs themselves, where this is the point of departure into the ocean in Surah Fussilat. Kul أَإِنَّكُمْ لَا تَكْفُرُونَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَ الْأَرْضَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ وَتَجْعَلُونَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا ذَلِكَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Kul, say to the Prophet ﷺ, it's a command to the Prophet, أَإِنَّكُمْ لَا تَكْفُرُونَ بِالَّذِي, do you disbelieve in the one who created the earth in 2 days? وَتَجْعَلُونَ لَهُ أَنْدَادًا, and do you make equals to him? ذَلِكَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ, he is the Rabb, he is the Lord of Alameen. Remember we did the Alameen. Alameen is everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. We did that. وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ مِنْ فَوْقِهَا وَبَارَكَ فِيهَا وَقَدَّرَهَا فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا فِي أَرْبَعَةِ أَيَّامٍ سَوَاءً لِلسَّائِلِينَ. وَجَعَلَ فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ, and then He put the mountains مِنْ فَوْقِهَا upon it. وَبَارَكَ فِيهَا وَقَدَّرَهَا فِيهَا أَقْوَاتَهَا, and then He blessed it, and then He put the sustenance upon it in 4 days. So He created the earth in 2 days. In 4 days, He did the measuring out of the sustenance of what is on earth. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وَهِيَ دُخَانٌ, and then He turned towards the sama, and it was smoke. فَقَالَ لَهَا وَلِلْأَرْضِ فِيهَا طَوْعًا أَوْ كَرْحًا قَالَتَا آتَيْنَا طَائِعِينَ. Then He turned towards the sama, and it was smoke. And last time, if you remember, we said this smoke is not the fire smoke, but from the water. It's the heating up. It's the steam. It's called. فَقَالَ لَهَا, and then He said to the earth, come, either submitting willingly or unwillingly. And we'll go into the details. فَقَدَاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ. And then قَدَاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. So this smoke that was there, He turned into samawat, 7 samawat, in 2 days. He created the earth in 2 days. He put the aqawat, the measurements, the sustenance in 4 days. And then He turns towards the sama. It was smoke. He made it into 7 samawat in 2 days. And then فَأَوْهَا فِي كُلِّ سَمَاءٍ أَمْرَهَا. And then He revealed to each of these samats their amr, their commands. وَزَيَّنَ السَّمَاءَ دُنْيَا بِمَسَابِهَا. And then this sama of this dunya, he decorated it, He adorned it with masabi, with stars, which we don't see anymore. We need to see them. وَحِفْزًا ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. And then He protected hifz. And this is the taqdeer of Al-Aziz Al-Alim. This is the decree of Al-Aziz, the mighty, and Al-Alim, the knower. فَإِنْ عَرَضُوا فَقُلْ أَنذَرْتُكُمْ صَاعِقَةً مِثْلَ صَاعِقَةٍ عَادٍ وَثَمُودٍ. So if they don't listen, if they disregard all of this, then warn them about what happened, of the Saika, the calamity that came upon the Ad and Samud. SubhanAllah. This short passage, you can spend millions of lives just on this. There is absolutely that. But we have a problem here. Did you get that? 2 days of creation of earth, 4 days of that, then 2 days. 2 plus 4 plus 2 gives us 8. We said He created everything in 6 days. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said He created. Here we count 8. But before we go into that, there is an additional problem with the translation that we need to just pay attention. Inshallah, we one day will get deeper into it. When we say that then He turned to Sama, while it was, at that time it was smoke. And then we say, then He decreed that the samas be, the smoke be 7 samawat. What is it that we are translating then in the original text? What are the words which we are translating then? Because in English, when you say then, what do we understand? Serially, right? This happened, then this happened, then this happened. But the words in the Qur'an are, the word that we are translating is thumma. One is thumma stawa ila sama, and the second is fa, the letter fa. And both of them are being translated as then. Now, thumma appears 342 times in the Qur'an. And it can have 2 meanings. One is called thumma takhiri and the thumma rutbi. These are the 2 different kinds of thumma in the meaning in Arabic of al-tarahi al-zamani, al-tarahi al-rutbi. Serial, sequential thumma, meaning one thing after another, and second is in the ranking of something. Like thumma can be rank of nobility. Zaid thumma Amr. A person Zaid in the rank and then thumma Amr. After him is this. So in the hierarchy of this, say, organization, nobility, character, anything, generosity, whatever we're talking about, we say Zaid thumma Amr. What do we understand? That in the ranking of this discussion that we are having, Zaid is higher than Amr. And then we say, Ja Zaid thumma Amr. Zaid came and then Amr. What do we mean by that? Sequential entering into this room of one person after the other. So that's one thing. That's just a side note. And there are 5 kinds of fas. So what we translated as then, fa qada. Fa can be fa sababiyya, it could be fa of qaz, fa of atf, of joining, that we'll inshallah go into. But let's go back because it's hard to focus on. Once you get into the ocean, subhanallah. The question of 8, we said we arrived at the number of 8. And how do we get back number 6? Because they were created in 6 days, sittati ayyam, and now we are counting 8. The question, of course, arose very early, and we have Abu Ishaq al-Zajjaj, who was just an expert in Lugha. Like there are, if you look at the history of our tradition, there are people who were specialists in certain branches, but all of them were well versed in every branch. So this this contemporary disease of the specialists didn't exist. Like the ENT specialist has no knowledge of the heart anymore. Like even within the discipline of tib, of medicine, you have minute specializations because the alum, the branches of knowledge have been shattered, broken up. It's like an atomic disaster. It's just everything is floating like a free radical itself. There is no connection left to them. And what I'm saying has connection to how they explain it. But Ibrahim Abu Ishaq al-Zajjaj, Allah have mercy on him, he died in 311 Hijri, which comes to 923. And he was an expert in Lugha. And he said, Fi arbati ayyam, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means by this is that these are وَقَدَّرَ الْأَقْوَاتَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ يَوْمُ الثَّلَاثَ وَأَرْبَعَ فَهُمَا مَا الْآخِرِ وَالْإِثْنَيْنِ. He says that these 4 days that we are talking about, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the sustenance, are with the first 2 days. They are not separate. So He created the earth in 2 days, and the 4 days are part of those first 2 days. And he says, how do we know this? And he actually says, this is Yawm al-Akhir wal-Ithnain and Yawm al-Thalatha wal-Arba. He says it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And he says, how do we know this? He says, because when you say, kama taqulu, as you say, tazawwaj tu amsi ra'at wal-yawma Sintain, وإحداهما هي التي تبزجتها بالأمس. When you say that I married, yesterday I married a woman, and then you say al-yawma sintain, and I married 2 today. You don't mean that you have 3 wives now. You mean that you married 1 yesterday and you married 1 today, and together they are 2. So those 2 days of creation of the earth, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in 4 days He put the akwat. So even more clearly, the same thing. About 160 years after al-Zajjaj, we have Abu Abdullah Muhammad bin Ahmad bin Abu Bakr bin Farah al-Ansari al-Khazarji Shamsuddin al-Qurtubi. You will notice that I am very particular about names. Names are important. Names have to be pronounced, written out in their complete sense. We should not distort names. Names are meaningful, they refer to, they give us so much biographical information. Like if we just look at this one name in our tradition, Abu Abdullah, Muhammad bin Ahmad, bin Abi Bakr, bin Farah al-Ansari al-Khazaraji, Shamsuddin al-Qurtubi. You have a whole life story just in the name itself. He is al-Khazaraji, he is Shamsuddin, he is the son of this deen, son of this, like the sun brightness. He is Abu Abdullah, and it's so much. So he says, the example of these 2 days plus 4 days is like when you say, خرجت من البصرة إلى البغداد ده في 10 أيام وإلى الكوفة في 15 يوما. When you say that I left Basra for Baghdad, in 10 days I was there. وإلى الكوفة في 15 and to Kufa 15 days. What are you saying? How long have you been traveling in total? 15 in total. 10 days to reach Baghdad from Basra, and 5 more days, not 15 days. See, the verse, the ayah, everything, everybody is explaining that these 4 days are continuity of the previous days. Like when you traveled from Basra to Baghdad in 10 days, and then 5 more days will, same thing. And I think it's clear, right? So we only have 2 days. Now we come to another Aqawat, we said that it's the measurement of the sustenance of the earth. In 4 days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the sustenance upon this earth. He created the earth, and then in 4 days, meaning 2 plus 2, that's it. We have a second explanation of this part of the ayah from none other than Abu Mansur Muhammad bin Mahmud al-Maturidi. He is the Imam of the Aqidah. He is the one, he's from Samarkand. He died in 333, very easy to remember, 333 Hijrah, which is 944. And what he did was just amazing. See, we have to know these things because we are reflecting on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 2023. We are constrained in our minds, in our thinkings, in our hearts, in our emotions, in our aql, in our capacity, in our knowledge, because of the time and the place where we have been. Everybody, every human being is constrained by the local circumstances of his or her existence all the time. There is no one who can transcend what's happening in the dunya at the time this person is living. Like we are impacted, we don't sit down and count how much we are impacted by, unless COVID happens, and then we say, oh, this has impacted. We are being impacted by the very air we are breathing. Whatever we are impacted by the food we are taking. Like whatever is happening to our bodies, to our psychology, to our health, to our intellect, everything is, so every human being all the time is being affected. At this time when Imam al-Maturidi is living, they are living in an extreme situation where there is extreme case of intellectual confusion. Greek material has come into Arabic. There is political unrest. There is this Kramitiya movement. Remember those people who actually stole the black stone? Like they attacked the Kaaba during Hajj and they took the black stone out. This is the time of extreme unrest in whatever was the Muslim world at that time. Intellectual terrorism, like we don't talk about terrorism of that time, but there was terrorism. People were being killed, they were being poisoned, they were being assassinated by this group. At that time, he wrote his tafsir, Tawilat Ahlul Sunnah. So there was a need to consolidate the credo position of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So that's why Imam al-Maturidi is so important. He's so important until today. He says that the 4 days of the Aqawat actually means that ja'ala fil ardi jibalan arsabiha al-arda wa athbatiha li'annahu zakara anna al-arda kanat al-ma wa kanat tamida bi ahliha lakinnahu arsaha bil jibali wa akarraha biha. He says that these are the 4 days, the aqwat, that the measurements, the sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning. It means that these are not the sustenances for the people who are going to come and live there. These are actually the things for the earth itself. Earth was upon water, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stabilized the earth by inserting mountains upon the earth. Because earth was not stable, it was not ready for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was creating it for. So what he did was he inserted, and this is very important for us to know, that the Jabal, the mountains which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to reflect on, they are not just sitting on earth. They are inserted, they are pegs. And then the beauty of this is that he says, but there is lutf in this mention. There is subtlety in this mention. There is kindness in this mention. He says, if you reflect on it, what would it do for the earth if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just put the mountains and there is water underneath? Mountains would just go from the surface to the water. And if water was the problem, earth was unstable because it was upon water, it was floating on water, what would mountains do? Because they would just float along with the earth. Plus, the earth is becoming heavier now because of the mountains. So what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us? By saying that He put jibal, He put mountains, He inserted mountains upon earth to make it stable. And He says, تَعْلِيمُهَا مِنْهُ الْخُلْقِ. There is education here for the creation. There is something for us to take from this. He says, تَعْلِيقَ الْأَشْيَاء بَعْدَهَا بِبَعْدٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, combine things with things. وَتَعْلِيقِهَا بِالْأَسْبَابِ مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَكُونَ الْأَسْبَابِ مَعُونَةً لَهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ. And then connect everything with the causality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that mountains are the causes of stabilization of the earth, whereas this is not the case. They are the apparent causes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning causality just to teach us that we need to pay attention to causes that happen. If we do this, then this is going to happen. This is the lesson. If we go the wrong way, if we leave the right path, that would be the cause of whatever would happen with that. The teachings, he says, is for those who are going to come and live upon earth. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to just stabilize the earth, He could have stabilized it without inserting the mountains. Mm-hmm. But He taught us through this. Now, we started with Ibn Kathir rahimahullah. He told us why this is the place we should dive into this question. We go back to him. He died in 774, which is the 14th century, 1377. You see these connections in our tradition? As a judge, way back, says, well, these are not 8 days, these are 6 days. By the time it reaches Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, I went to his grave in Syria. He is, mashallah, he's a connection for us with the tradition in the latter times. He based his tafsir on the tafsir of Imam al-Tabari, and at places he disagreed with Imam al-Tabari. At places he was also a hadith scholar, so he mentioned some of the problems with the hadith. But he brings one more question for us. It is the question of sequential creation. What did we understand from these previous ayahs? In the order of creation, what was created before, first and what was created afterwards? Earth or the Sama? Was it Sama or the earth? Earth. Earth was first. Yeah. Earth was first, right? This is how we understood. Yeah. But then he says, in Surah Naziyat, we read, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاءِ بَنَاهَا رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا وَأَغْطَشَ لَيْلَهَا وَأَخْرَجَ ضُحَاهَا وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. He says that in Surah Al-Naziyat, we read, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاءِ. Is your creation more difficult than the Sama? Banaha, we made it. Rafa samkaha wa sabbaha waqtasha laylaha wa akhraja duhaha, and we took out its day and night. Ba'da dhalika wal arda ba'da, and after that, dahaha, we did the earth. We spread the earth after that. First we made the sama. In these ayahs, we took out the for Sawwaha, we made this, the samawat, the sama we made it, we took out its light, its night, akhraja duhaha, and its day. Wal arda ba'da dhalika dahaha, akhraja minha ma'aha wa mar'aha, wal jibala arsaha, mata'an lakum wa li'an'amikum. So in this ayah, we see, if we read the translation, it says, wa akhraja duhaha, like we took the day of the sky, and then after that we spread the earth. We took out akhraja minha ma'aha, we took out its water, wa mar'aha, and then wal jibala arsaha, then we put the mountains. Mata'an lakum wa li'an'amikum, and this is the mata, this is what is for you and for your cattle. وَكَانَ هَذَا بَعْدَ خَلْقِ السَّمَاءِ فَأَمَّا خَلْقُ الْأَرْضِ فَقَبْلَ خَلْقِ السَّمَاءِ بِالنَّاسِ. So what do we do now? We have a beautiful, beautiful way of answering this question. And that takes us back to the time of the Sahaba themselves. A man comes to Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, yani, this is, Ibn Abbas is the So he is the son of Uncle Abbas, and he is the one for whom the Prophet ﷺ made dua to give him the knowledge of the Qur'an. So this is in Sahih Bukhari. After the Prophet ﷺ passed away, a man came to Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhuma, may Allah be pleased with him and with his father. And he says, Inni ajidu fil Qur'ani ashya takhtalifu alayya. There are things in the Qur'an which are takhtalifu, they are contradictory for me. And this person, this is time of the companions, this is shortly after the Prophet ﷺ. And this person says, look, I read in Surah Mu'minun, فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ. On that day there would be no lineage, no relationship between them, وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ, and they would not be asking. But then I read in Safat, وَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ يَتَسَاءَلُونَ, and some of them would be facing each other and asking. The first ayah says, there will be no asking. The second ayah says they will be facing each. And then he says, وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهِ حَدِيثًا. In Surah An-Nisa, I read, وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهَ حَدِيثًا. And in Surah Al-An'am, I read, وَاللَّهِ رَبَّنَا مَا كُنَّا مُشْرِكِينَ. وَلَا يَكْتُمُونَ اللَّهَ حَدِيثًا. It says, in Surah Nisa, it says, nothing will be hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاللَّهِ رَبَّنَا مَا كُنَّا مُشْرِكِينَ فَقَدْ قَتَمُوا فِي هَذِهِ الْآيَةِ. In this ayah, second ayah, the mushrikeen, the polytheists, the people who did the shirk, they say, Wallahi Rabbana ma kunna mushrik. They say, no, Ya Allah, this is the day of Qiyamah. We were not mushriks. And the first ayah, nothing can be hidden. Now they are hiding something from Allah subhanahu. And in Surah Al-Waqala, Amis Sama'u Banaha ila qawli dahaha, fazakara khalq as-sama'i qabla khalq al-ard. So this is the ayah. This man has lots of questions, but the one question that we are dealing with is exactly the same question, that the earth was created in this Surah Naziyat as if it was created afterwards. Right? This is the question we are dealing with. Is it clear? So we have an answer from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. For the question that we are asking today was asked way back 1400 years ago. The tradition preserved it. This is the beauty. This is what we have to just join ourselves. We cannot just say we are just free radicals floating and these are the questions we are facing. There is nothing in, everything is there. We just have to find it. One last thing that he asked, I cannot leave this. He says in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. In Surah An-Nisa, again 56, ayah 56, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ سَمِيًّا بَصِيرًا فَكَأَنَّهُ كَانَ مَدًا. This man says to Sayyidina Ibn Abbas that all of these ayahs, they use the word kana. Kana is used for the past. So, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that in the past he was forgiving, merciful, mighty, wise, listening, seeing? What does it mean to say Kana Allah? So these are his questions. And the answer to the question that we are asking, so Sayyidina Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says, فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ فِي النَّفْخَةِ الْأُولَى ثُمَّ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ فَصَعِقَ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ. So he answers that فَلَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنْدَ ذَلِكَ وَلَا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ ثُمَّ فِي النَّفْخَةِ الْأُخْرَى. These are the ayahs referring to two different times. One is before the first blowing, before the second blowing, and the second is after the second blowing in the nafkha. So he answers everything, but since we want to remain focused on this one, the question of the earth, he says that in this ayah, this is the ha-ha. This is the spreading of the earth that is being mentioned, not the creation of the earth. That means that when earth was created, it wasn't flattened out yet. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the earth, He created the sama, then He flattened the earth and He took out the vegetation from it. And all of those things mentioned in Surah Naziyat, they refer to the flattening. And then he says, فَقَالَ لَهُ Ibn Abbas هَلْ بَقِيَ فِي قَلْبِكَ شَيْءٍ. Is there anything left in your heart which is troubling you? إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ شَيْءٌ إِلَّا وَقَدْ أُنزِلَ فِي شَيْءٍ وَلَكِنْ تَعْرِفُونَ وُجُوهَهُ. He says there is nothing in the Qur'an except that it has been explained in other places, so there is no discord in the. There is I think I can perhaps do this part and then that's where we can end. Remember I just mentioned before that قَالَ تَعَاتَيْنَ ta'een. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the sama and the earth, He said, come willingly or unwillingly. What does that mean? What does that mean to say to the sama and the earth? And what does it mean for our understanding of the Big Bang cosmology? First of all, the linguistic aspect of what is being used here, that is used only for the zulaqul, those who have intellect. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَوْحَى فِي كُلِّ سَمَاءٍ أَمْرَهَا, that He revealed, Awha is the same word that is used for revelation of the Qur'an itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending revelation to the Sama. What is that revelation? And it means that the Sama and the earth and everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created has receptivity to revelation. We don't have that concept in the scientific cosmology. A stone is a stone, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the Qur'an is revealed to the stones, to the mountains, it would shatter. لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. We don't have the mountains in the Big Bang cosmology that would give us this receptivity to the coming of the Qur'an on the mountains. We don't have a situation in the Big Bang cosmology where the earth itself is going to be the first creation. What do we have in the Big Bang cosmology? Just the Big Bang we mentioned last time, and then everything all at once, circulating, expanding, separating, cooling off. There is no sequential order there. So those Muslims who really want the Big Bang in the Quran have a real problem here. And they have to choose which one they want. And we need to have the first principles to decide these things. Like, we cannot just do these things. As always, it's not today. I try to organize my mind to remain focused on this ocean. But once you are in the ocean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever He puts in the hearts. But I want to stay within the time limits so that people have time for questions. And
What do you think? I know it's only Allah. But what does He mean by come willingly or unwilling? Come. Like, I mean, there's implies like, well, number one, submission, obviously.
Right.
But it also, do we understand it in terms of space and time as well? Is it to be understood in time? The concept of space and time.
Yeah. So the beauty of this is that come here, of course, as you said, is the submission, whether or not you follow the commands. And Islam, as you know, is submission. Like, we come to Islam, we submit to Islam, which is the same kind of submission. And our understanding is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the human beings and the jinn to say, I don't come, I don't submit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed this freedom to these two creations to say, to accept or not to accept. And our understanding is that everything else does not have that built-in ability to say, no, I don't want to submit. But this is at the time of creation. And Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, he said that had they said no, they would have received punishment. So the understanding that we receive from the tradition is the sealing of the freedom to say yes or no after the first submission.